Alright, you lot. Welcome back to another podcast. And bloody hell, we've got some stories to chew through today. We're talking Italian regulators finally going to spine. Nintendo stock prices falling faster than my faith in gaming industry. Sophie Turner dressed up as Lara Croft. And your questions that I'll be answering whether you like my takes or not. So, grab your brew, put your feet up for a while. You sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Let's kick off with something that genuinely made me smile when I read it. Italy's competition watchdog has opened investigations into Activision Blizzard, specifically looking at Call of Duty Mobile and Diablo Immortal for misleading aggressive sales practices. Italian regulators reckon Activision might be operating in a manner that violates consumer protection legislation and failing to show professional care needed in a sector highly sensitive to risks of developing gambling addiction. And honestly, it's about bloody time someone with actual legal power said what we've all been screaming for years. I genuinely feel vindicated after all this time. And while I'm thrilled Italy's doing something, they're only scratching the surface here. They're going after mobile games, Call of Duty Mobile and Diablo Immortal. And yeah, those are predatory as hell. Designed from ground up to squeeze every penny out of players through psychological manipulation. Virtual currencies that obscure how much you're actually spending and far more tactics that make a timeshare salesman blush. But here's what bothers me. Tencent runs Call of Duty Mobile, and NetEase developed Diablo Immortal. Two Chinese companies, both using predatory monetization practices, both targeting Western audiences, including kids, and both doing it with Activision's full blessing under Microsoft's ownership. Well, that's sinking for a second. Two Chinese corporations are running what Italy's calling misleading and aggressive sales practices on Western children, and American corporate giants are not only allowing it, they're profiting from it. They sign deals, they hand it over at franchises, they take their cut while Tencent and NetEase do dirty work. Now, I wonder what Donald Trump would have to say about that. Because if I remember right, there were a lot of noise about TikTok and Chinese companies having too much influence over American consumers, especially young'uns. But right now we have Tencent and NetEase running what's essentially gambling mechanics aimed at kids through beloved Western gaming franchises. Get them all in room, Italy. Tencent, NetEase, Activision, and Microsoft. Make them all answer for you. And while we're at it, why stop at mobile? What about Warzone? That's free to play. That's got kids playing it. It's got exact same manipulative shop tactics, rotating bundles designed to create artificial scarcity, fear of missing out on limited time offers. Argument is that free-to-play games in a sector sensitive to gambling addiction need scrutiny. Warzone fits that description perfectly. Now, I get it. Mobile games and Warzone, fine, they're free-to-play. I accept that free-to-play games need monetization to keep lights on. I understand business model requires some form of income. I just don't like predatory monetization. But what absolutely boils my piss is when you pay full price for a game and then get treated like a free-to-play wallet anyway. Black Ops 7, 70 quid, full price premium game. And what do? Shove a 2-tier battle pass in your face. You've got your standard battle pass, then there's Black Cell, another 30 quid on top. For content that ain't even that good. It's not worth money. It's designed to make standard pass feel inadequate, to make you feel like you're missing out unless you cough up extra on a game you already paid full price for. That's not a free-to-play live service game. That's a premium product with free-to-play monetization bolted on because they know they can get away with it. And they've been getting away with it for years, because nobody with any regulatory power has bothered to challenge it. And to be honest, Microsoft is mostly to blame here, because they own Activision Blizzard now. $69 billion they spent on that acquisition, and they've done naught to clean up these practices. And Microsoft are just as guilty across their own ecosystem. This isn't one bad actor, it's industry-wide rot, and biggest players in game are all in on it together. So Italy, if you're listening, I know you're not, but if you are, don't stop at mobile. Drag Tencent into proceedings. Look at Warzone. Look at mainline series. Look at entire ecosystem and manipulation that Activision's built, that Microsoft's now inherited and done naught to dismantle. Because if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to protect consumers from predatory practices, you need to go after all rotten structure, not just most obvious symptoms. This could be the start of something. Italy could be domino that kicks off proper reckoning for how these companies treat their customers. Here's hoping they've got stomach to see it through. Let's have a question from you. This one comes from T-Post663, who asks, thoughts on Japanese studios abandoning Western localizers? Hope you had a great Christmas and New Year. First off, mate, thanks for the question, and hope you had a cracking Christmas and New Year as well. Mine were peaceful, quiet, exactly where I needed. Now on to the question. Japanese studios ditching Western localization companies. Look, I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to give me honest take. I think it makes complete sense from both a cultural and a business standpoint. Here's what's actually happening. Companies like Square Enix, Capcom and Sega are pulling localization work back in-house, back to Japan. Square Enix just gutted their Western operations in November, over 100 jobs gone in US and UK, consolidating everything back to Tokyo. Capcom's been building internal localization teams that work alongside developers from day one. Sega's doing the same with Atlas, aiming for simultaneous worldwide launches instead of making Western audiences wait a year for a translated version. Now, why are they doing this? First is economics. Old model was slow and expensive. You'd finish a game in Japan, ship it off to Western agency, wait months for translation, and wait a year while that English version got translated into French, German, Spanish, everything else. That's pivot language model. Japanese to English, then English to everything else. And every time you run text through another filter, you lose something. Meaning gets diluted. Errors compound. By the time a Brazilian player gets their version, it's been through 2 rounds of interpretation, neither of which were done by people who actually wrote bloody thing. Second's technology. AI translations come a long way. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to handle heavy lifting now, and Japanese studios can go direct. Japanese to French, Japanese to Spanish, Japanese to Portuguese. No English middleman required. That alone cuts out an entire layer of potential errors. And here's delicious irony that's going to make certain corners of the internet absolutely seethe. There's a whole community of gamers out there who've been banging on about AI slot for the last couple of years, refusing to touch out that had AI anywhere near it, boycotting games, writing essays, making it their entire personality. Well, congratulations. If you want to play next Dragon Quest, next Final Fantasy, next Monster Hunter, you're probably going to be playing something that will localize with AI assistance. Your 2 choices are accept it or stop playing Japanese games entirely. Good luck with that boycott. I've been saying it for a while now. AI is future of game development. Not as a replacement for developers, but as a tool that makes certain processes faster, cheaper, and in some cases, more accurate. And I'm not alone in saying it. Top industry figures have been making the same point. Translation, asset creation, QA testing, voice synthesis for placeholder audio, book detection, applications are everywhere and they're expanding. Japanese ditching Western localization middleman in favour of direct AI-assisted translation is just the latest example, and it won't be last. AI, in-game development, incoming, it's already here. It's already embedded. And those who refuse to accept that reality aren't going to stop it. They're just going to get left behind, playing increasingly smaller libraries of pure games while the rest of the industry moves on without them. Adapt or get comfortable with your backlog. Those are your options. But I digress. Third reason, and this is big one, creative control. There's been a growing frustration in Japan about Western localizers taking liberties with scripts. And I'm not talking about necessary cultural adaptation. I'm talking about ideological meddling. Masayoshi Yakiyama from Ryoga Kotoku Studios, Yakuza games. He's talked openly about pressure from Sega in America to change dialogue because certain lines might not play well with American sensibilities. Lines about men and women having different abilities, that sort of thing. And he's pushing back, saying studio can't live and die creatively on data from Western-focused groups. Masahiro Sakurai, local created Super Smash Bros., said Japanese developers should stop trying to appeal to Western tastes. He reckons Western gamers actually want uniqueness in Japanese games. And when you Americanize them, you strip out that very thing that made them appealing in the first place. And honestly, he's right. Look at success stories. Elden Ring, Monster Hunter, Persona, Yakuza. None of these games succeeded by pretending to be American. They succeeded by being unapologetically Japanese and trusting that a global audience would appreciate authenticity of a sanitized adaptation. Now, does this mean people are losing their jobs? Yeah, and that's genuinely unfortunate for individuals affected. Nobody wants to see workers get booed. But at the end of the day, if quality at final product improves, if players get translations that are closer to what original creators intended, then I can't fault business decision. Japanese are highly intelligent, highly capable people, and while many of them might not speak English like a native, they understand their own stories, their own characters, their own cultural context better than any external agency ever could. They want to take control of how their work is presented to the world. I say good on them. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree, drop it in comments. Let's have a conversation about it. And speaking of Japanese, let's talk about Nintendo, because house that Mario built is having a bit of a wobble. Nintendo's stocks dropped 33% in 5 months, from nearly 15,000 yen back in August to under 10,000 yen now. Another 4.7% tumble just last month wiped $14 billion off the valuation. And if you've been paying attention to RAM shortage crisis, you'll know exactly why investors are getting twitchy. 12 gigabytes of RAM in Switch 2 now costs 41% more per quarter than it did at launch. That's not a typo. 41%. Now here's the thing. If you know Nintendo's history, this isn't exactly a shock. This company has a pattern. They have a massive success, they get comfortable, they make some questionable decisions, they stumble, then they innovate the way out of trouble. Virtual Boy, GameCube, Wii U. 3DS launch was so bad that Satoru Iwata took personal pay cuts twice just to keep shit steady. Nintendo knows what a slump feels like. They've been here before. But this time's not entirely their fault. Well, sorta. Let's start with external pressure. Economy right now is brutal. Cost of living is through the roof. People are struggling to pay mortgages, groceries, insurance, and Nintendo rocks up asking $450 for a console and $80 for Mario Kart. Some of $500 just to get into it. In Australia, console alone is $700. One gaming journalist said he can't afford a night out at movies with his kids anymore, so why would he drop $450 on a games console? And he's not alone. Millions of people are in that exact position. Nintendo's president has acknowledged that price might be too much for younger gamers. But his response was basically, we think it's appropriate for what it offers, and we'll monitor the situation. Which is corporate speak for, we're not changing out unless sales fall off a cliff. But here's where Nintendo shot themselves in foot, and this is part that's their fault. Dev kits. Nintendo deliberately withheld Switch 2 development kits from third-party studios. At GDC 2025, Digital Foundry confirmed that a huge number of developers still didn't have access to hardware. We're talking major publishers like Capcom, Sega, Ubisoft, Bandai Namco, all sitting there waiting for Nintendo to send them tools they need to make games. One insider estimated that 2/3 of studios who made games for original Switch didn't have Switch 2 kits. Call of Duty got delayed because of this. Reason? Nintendo were paranoid about leaks. They wanted to control narratives so badly they strangled their own launch library in Crib. Sound familiar? Should. This is exactly what happened with Wii U. Thin third-party support, first-party heavy lineup, consumers waiting for games that aren't coming, and we all know how that ended. 13 million units sold. Disaster. Now, right in physical media situation, Nintendo's first-party games are fine. Full game on cartridge. No issue. But third-party titles? It's a mess. You got guarantee cards, which look like cartridges, but are actually just a license key that forces you to download entire game. It's classic code in a box release, where you're literally buying an empty case with a slip of paper inside. Reason for that? The 64GB cartridges, maximum size Nintendo offers, too expensive for publishers to justify. Developers of Star Wars Outlaws and Final Fantasy VII Remake have openly said that Switch 2 cartridges' speeds aren't even fast enough for their games. So what you got is a console that's too expensive for current economy, third-party library that's been hamstrung by Nintendo's own paranoia, and a physical media ecosystem that's increasingly just a license to download rather than an actual product you own. This is history repeating. Nintendo gets comfortable after a massive success, makes decisions that prioritize control over growth, ends up in a slump. Switch is a phenomenon. Switch 2 might still do well in the long run, but right now, warning signs are flashing. And Nintendo's stubborn insistence on doing things their way, regardless of market conditions, catching up with him. But they've weathered storms before. They'll probably weather this one too. And don't let anyone tell you this were unavoidable. Some of it were economy, but a lot of it were Nintendo being Nintendo. Right then, let's have some more of your questions. Here's a question from Ages444. Yes, this is going to be a very hot take. I think Leon is overrated. I never understood the love he got from RE4 onwards. I compared Leon with protagonist MGS3, Delta in my case, and they're very similar. Snarky puns, one-liners, over-top cinematics, yet I find MGS Delta's protagonist more entertaining. Are my comparisons founded, or am I just talking out my ass? Ages, mate, you're absolutely not talking out your ass. Your comparisons are completely founded, and honestly, it's a really sharp observation. Leon Kennedy and Naked Snake, or Big Boss, or whatever you want to call him, depending on which game you're playing, they do share a hell of a lot of DNA. Both characters hit their peak cultural relevance in mid-2000s, both on trading that same campy, funny soldier energy where they're pulling off impossible stunts while cracking wise. Leon's got Where's Everyone Going bingo and calling Salazar a shrimp. Snake's got his philosophical monologue about finding inner peace inside a cardboard box. They're both products of that golden era of Japanese game design where the line between serious soldier and action movie parody were joyfully blurred. But here's where they diverge. And this might explain why you find Snake more entertaining. Snake's journey has weight to it. He's forced to kill his mentor, Boss, to prevent nuclear war. Then he finds out all the thing was set up by his own government. That betrayal breaks him, leads him down a path to total disillusionment, rejecting national loyalty entirely, and eventually founding Outer Heaven. His arc is a deconstruction of patriotic soldier myth. He goes from hero to villain across series, and every step of that fall's earned. Leon, on the other hand, is what you call paladin archetype. He's the ideal hero. No matter how much trauma gets thrown at him, his moral compass stays locked. He started as a naive rookie cop in Resident Evil 2, got hardened into a government super agent by Resident Evil 4, and now he's pushing 50 and still kicking ass in Resident Evil Requiem. But his core identity hasn't fundamentally changed. He's still a good guy doing the right thing. That's not criticism, by the way. That's just who Leon is. Some people find that reassuring. Others find it a bit one-note compared to Snake's tragic descent. Now, why did Leon become the face of Resident Evil instead of Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine? Honestly, from an aesthetic and marketing perspective, I get it. Capcom's own data shows that nearly 80% of players chose Leon first in Resident Evil 2 Remake. He's got that recognisable look, ash blonde hair, bomber jacket, Hikoji appeal, which is apparently a Japanese term for a cool older guy. Unlike Chris, whose design has bounced around from regular bloke to boulder-punching meat mountain, Leon stayed consistent. And critically, Leon's games, RE2 and RE4, are two most beloved entries in the entire franchise. Each poster boy for series' greatest hits. But would I love to see more at Redfields? Absolutely. Jill Valentine? Yeah, please. Ada Wong? Capcom, give me more Ada Wong, I'm begging you. Resident Evil universe is packed with brilliant characters who deserve spotlight. Speaking of, there's another Resident Evil movie reboot coming out in September 2026. Zach Kreger, local directed Barbarians at helm. He said it's an original story set in RE universe. No Leon, no existing characters from games, just a new protagonist, some medical courier who gets caught in an outbreak. Kreger says he's not going to tell Leon's story because that's already been told in games. Now look, I appreciate intent, but I'm calling it now. This is probably going to be another mistake. We've had Paul W.S. Anderson's films with Mia Jovovich as Alice, which were entertaining but not to do with games. We had Welcome to Raccoon City, which tried to adapt source material and flopped. And now we get another inspired by effort that's not a direct translation. Track record speaks for itself. They'd actually commit to telling game stories properly with characters people love. Maybe we'd have a decent Resident Evil film by now. But hey, I could be wrong. We'll see in September. And here's another question from Ages444. Yes, my questions might piss some or a lot of people off, but why not ask? First question or statement is the exclusives dying down or becoming rarer. PC still have exclusives to this day. Squad, GTFO, Repo, Schedule 1. I'm on console end of gaming, Xbox. There's a lot of games I would love to play, but it's only on PC at the moment, and I don't know if or when they plan to transfer it over to consoles. There is a game I've seen a couple of days ago called Exekiller. It looks really fun, and I want to support it. but current gameplay trailer rendered with wishlist on Steam now. Is PC exclusivity still alive and well, or am I misinformed? Right, mate, I could have some absolute brilliant news for you, depending on your point of view. And that is, next Xbox is supposedly going to be a PC hybrid. Now, this ain't some random Reddit bollocks either. This comes from Sarah Bond herself, Xbox president. She confirmed they're working on next-gen hardware with AMD, and multiple sources, including Jez Corden at Windows Central, have detailed what it's going to look like. So picture this. Next Xbox, codenamed Magnus for now, will essentially be running Windows under hood. Add to the box, it'll feel exactly like your normal Xbox console. Same onboarding, same dashboard, same experience. But here's where it gets spicy. You'll be able to exit out to full Windows and access Steam, Epic Games Store, Battle.net, and GOG. Anyone who watches my main week videos knows how much I've been raving about GOG and the DRM-free philosophy. So seeing them included is chef's kiss. Full backwards compatibility is confirmed too. All your original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and current Xbox Series games that already work through back compat will run natively on this thing. Plus, you'll be able to play PlayStation games exclusive that have come to PC. Things like God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, and Spider-Man, all purchasable through Steam and playable on your Xbox. That's mental when you think about it. Now, downside, and you knew this were coming, price. I'm calling it now. This will 100% be more expensive than your typical console. Some leakers suggest it could be twice the price of PS6, potentially pushing towards $1,000 mark. Xbox is positioning this as a premium high-end curated experience, which is corporate speak for bring your wallet and not from your bank manager. But even so, it'll likely be cheaper than building an equivalent gaming PC, especially with GPU prices being what they are. Launch window looks like 2027, possibly 2028, so there's still time to start saving your pennies. As for Exekiller, here's even better news for you, mate. My sources confirmed that Exekiller is actually destined for a console release. I dug into this and it's now confirmed for PS5, Xbox Series and PC, with a release window of 2026. No games publishing it, Caradoc Studios developing, and they just showed off a massive gameplay trailer at New Game Plus Showcase last week. 3 minutes of gunplay, driving, melee combat, parkour, lot. I'm going to be honest, I watched that trailer and I saw Cyberpunk shagging Red Dead Redemption in a retro-futuristic western setting. You play as Denzel Phoenix, bounty hunter in a scorched post-apocalyptic New York, collecting souls for a mega-corporation called Helio. I know I'm not typically an open-world fan, but it does honestly look awesome, and I can completely see why you want to play it. Semi-open structure, non-linear missions, choice-driven dialogue systems that don't pause gameplay, looks properly interesting. Now, addressing this Ender exclusives thing more broadly. Yeah, console exclusives are becoming a dying breed. Microsoft's throwing everything on PC, PlayStation is porting their back catalogue, nobody wants to leave money on the table anymore. But PC exclusives, mate, they're absolutely alive and kicking. When you look at games like Squad, GTFO, Repo, Schedule 1, ones you mentioned, they're all PC exclusive and there's no confirmed console ports on any of them. Squad has been asked about consoles repeatedly and they've said, maybe far in future. GTFO has been that since 2021 and still not. Schedule 1 just launched into early access in March 2025 and devs have said they'd consider console once game reaches version 1.0. Repo, same story, still in early access, still PC only. It's not that these developers hate console players, it's that financial and technical barriers make it a risk versus reward calculation. For a lot of smaller studios, reward don't justify risk when they can reach millions of players through Steam alone. So, Aegis, no, you're not misinformed. PC exclusivity is absolutely still alive and well, especially in indie space. But with next Xbox potentially bridging that gap by running PC storefronts directly, might find yourself with access to a lot more games in a couple of years. Whether that's worth premium price tag Microsoft's likely going to slap on it, that's for you to decide. In the meantime, Exekiller is coming to Xbox, so at least you got that to look forward to. Now then, we need to talk about something that's dropped this week that genuinely caught me off guard. And that's first look at Sophie Turner as Lara Croft for upcoming Prime Video series. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When they announced Sophie Turner were taking on this role back in September, I had me doubts. I really did. I thought to myself, Sansa Stark as Lara Croft, woman who spent 8 seasons getting beaten up rather than doing beating. How's that going to work? And I know I wasn't alone in that, because when casting were announced, internet were distinctly unimpressed. Fans were questioning whether she had physicality, presence, sheer Lara-ness to pull it off. And this image drops. And I've got to say, wow, I was wrong. Hands up, fully admit it. I was completely, utterly wrong about her looking part. She's absolutely slipped into roll like a glove. Green tank top, brown shorts, dual pistols holstered on her thighs, those iconic red-tinted circular sunglasses that are direct callback to original 1996 game, fingerless gloves, braid with few loose strands, all 9 yards. Classic Tomb Raider. None of this modern reimagining bollocks. This is PS1 era Lara Croft brought to life. At risk of sounding a bit pervy here, but she is 29, so I'm not being completely weird about it. She looks absolutely stunning in that gear. Properly fit. And I can see a lot of lads flocking to the tellies to watch this, even if they've never touched a Tomb Raider game in their lives. That's just reality. Sex sells. Always has. And Sophie Turner in those shorts with those pistols is going to shift some subscriptions for Prime Video. And before anyone accuses me of simping, she's not me type. But I can acknowledge when someone looks part, and she absolutely does. Only thing missing is triangle boobs, but that's probably for best. We've evolved since then. Slightly. The question now becomes, can she pull off Lara Croft vibe in her actual acting? Because looking part is one thing. Embodying that confident, witty, intelligent, fearless adventurer persona is something else entirely. Sophie Turner's a great talented young actress, no denying that, but even great actors can struggle with certain roles. Sometimes chemistry isn't there. Sometimes characters just don't click with performers' natural energy. Mind you, a lot of that comes down to script and direction too. And on that front, we've got Phoebe Waller-Bridge at helm as creator, writer and showrunner. This is the woman who played Eleanor Shaw in Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. She gave us Fleabag in Killing Eve. She co-wrote No Time to Die. If anyone knows how to write a sharp, charismatic, complicated female protagonist, it's her. And in the James Bond and the Indiana Jones were major inspirations behind Lara Croft in the first place, feels like perfect fit. Supporting cast is stacked too. You got Sigourney Weaver as Evelyn Wallace, a mysterious character who wants to exploit Lara's talents. Jason Isaacs as Lara's uncle Atlas de Mornay. Bill Patterson as Winston, Croft family butler, which is a proper deep cut for fans at games. Martin Bob Semple as Zip, Lara's tech support. Celia Inley, Patterson Joseph. This ain't some cheap cash grab adaptation. They've thrown serious talent and money at this thing. And let's not forget, this is happening at the same time 2 new Tomb Raider games are in development. Legacy of Atlantis, which is a remake at 1996 original, coming in 2026. And Tomb Raider Catalyst, brand new game for 2027. Crystal Dynamics is clearly coordinating a massive multimedia push for the franchise. Prime Video at century. So yeah, time will tell whether Sophie Turner can capture full essence of Lara Croft once cameras are properly rolling, but based on first image, I'm cautiously optimistic. Look, it's bang on. Preparation has been thorough. Creative team behind it has serious pedigree. And if no else, it's going to be visually spectacular. I'm looking forward to what Prime Studios do with this, and just please, for the love of God, don't give us gritty origin story with Lara's to become a killer for the first time thing again. Without that, give us confident, quipping, dual pistol wielding adventure we fell in love with. One who locks a butler in a freezer for a laugh. Alrighty, back to your questions. Now we've got Pirate Friendly Arsonist 9195 asking, okay, how's your 2026, Scotty? Mate, we're 2 weeks in, and I won't lie, I ain't got a clue. No, seriously, I can't tell you how things are, because I don't know yet. I can say it's been an okay start. Not best of beginnings, but certainly far from being worst. I'm alive. That's something at least. That's all I can tell you. January for me has always been planning stage for the year, setting out what I want to achieve, figure out roadmap, getting me ducks in a row before chaos kicks in properly. I have plans for a channel, obviously. I'm hoping to at least get my first book published this year, which has been a long time coming. And my son and I are planning to visit several conventions this year too, which is always a good time. Looks like RetroCon is going to be first this year. That's in May. For those who don't know, it's a proper retro convention. UK's best, according to the website, featuring vendors, mobile museum where you can actually get your hands on consoles and games from 80s, 90s and early 2000s. There's tournaments, content creators, works. And they've got a strict retro-only policy, so you won't find any pop vinyl figures or plushies clogging up stalls. Just good stuff. Games, consoles, accessories, rare memorabilia, proper classic heritage. Then Comic Con in August. We've been doing that for years. It's a great day out. We'll also look out for more dates announced for Dark Room. If you've never heard of it, John Robertson is absolutely bonkers. And we did enjoy it live show last year for my birthday at UK Games Expo. He's an Australian comedian who runs this interactive live-action text adventure game. Think Choose Your Own Adventure meets heavy metal game show, meets improv comedy, meets a sadistic dungeon master who wants to murder you with audience participation. It's mental. He's going to be at UK Games Expo again this year, but if we're doing RetroCon at start of May, I don't want to be forcing a visit to another convention at end of May. Plus, my sons both got bored at UK Games Expo last time, since it's primarily board games convention, not digital games. It's not really their scene. That said, they got some pretty cool merch from stalls, even if it was vastly overpriced. Still, evening show at Dark Room were well worth it. 9 PM start, expected to go 3 hours, and it leave till gone 1 AM, and I were laughing throughout. Proper belly laughs, kind where you can't breathe and you're crying, and you're worried you might actually soil yourself. Looking at his tour dates, he's got shows lined up at Stand in Newcastle, Glasgow, and Edinburgh in March. Birmingham in April, Edinburgh Fringe in August, doing both Dark Room and new solo show, Exeter in October, Manchester in November. So plenty of options if we fancy catching him somewhere other than a convention. If you've never seen Dark Room, check it out.
The first thing I saw when I got to the con was a member of Team Rocket going through a metal detector, and I thought, fucking stop him! And no one did. Then I saw several Hakuni Mikus, ranging from Miku to Miku. And then my personal favorite, 6 to 8 men dressed as Tingle from The Legend of Zelda. I say this with all the love in the world. It was wonderful. It was remarkable. Don't ever fucking do that to my eyes again. I've never felt so effortlessly sexually threatened in my life. Also, there was a dad, a great dad, who went, hey, look, kids, Pikmin. No!
It's not everyone's cup of tea, let's be honest. But if you like weird, raunchy and loud, crazy Australians screaming at you, go north, or fight light switch, while threatening you with terrible prizes and even worse deaths, then John Robertson's your man. Neil Patrick Harris called it an hilarious participatory cult classic. Telegraph described it as a rocky horror for nerds. And they've sold out Edinburgh Fringe 4 years running now. You can find him on Twitch, at Twitch TV Robotron, plus TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, all usual suspects. I'll link everything in the description. Check him out. Drop a follow if you enjoy. And tell him Scotty McGaming from YouTube sent you. So yeah, Pyro, to answer your actual question, 2026 is looking potentially decent. Ask me again at end of March, when I've actually had time to assess damage. Now, let's talk about those free games. Because if you're not claiming these, what are you doing with your Prime subscription? What's the point? You're paying for it. Take freebies. This week on Amazon Prime Gaming, we got 3 good codes up for grabs. First up, Brigado, Up Armored Deluxe. Now, this is a proper hidden gem that most people completely slept on. It's an isometric roguelike mech shooter from Stellar Jockeys, where you pilot mechs, tanks, and hovercraft through a cyberpunk dystopia, levelling buildings and blowing up columns or enemy vehicles. It's been described as Syndicate-invited Crusader No Remorse and Desert Strike cover for a game of Battletech. Had a threesome while listening to 80s synthwave, and Brigado was born almost 3 decades later. That's exactly what it is. 95% positive on Steam with nearly 4,000 reviews. So this ain't some shovelware rubbish. You get 56 different vehicles, 40 weapons, 100% destructible environments, and one at best synthwave soundtracks in gaming. Deluxe edition includes full OST and an audiobook. For free. On GOG. DRM free. Just techie. Next we got Gunslugs Rogue Tactics. This is from Orange Pixel, Dutch solo developers who's been making pixel art arcade games for about 20 years now. It's basically an 80s action movie crammed into a side-scrolling stealth shooter. Characters named after action heroes, procedurally generated levels. You can either sneak around stabbing guards and hiding bodies in lockers, or go full Rambo and spray everything in sight. Reviews are a bit mixed. There's some jank. Controller support is apparently a bit dodgy, but it's free. It's worth the punt if you like retro arcade shooters with a tactical twist. Just don't expect it to be polished to a mirror shine. Then there's Death Keep. Now let's be honest about this, and Death Keep is a 1996 DOS dungeon crawler from SSI. Last game they made under AD&D license before it expired. And it shows. GameSpy called it a pretty ignominious end for a pretty distinguished run. Reviews at times said it was one of the worst games on PC, with bad graphics, clunky controls, and gameplay that felt ancient even in 1996. Were originally made for 3DO, which should tell you everything you need to know. Port to PC made everything worse. So why am I mentioning it? 'Cause it's free. It's DRM free on GOG. And if you're into retro dungeon crawlers and want to see what Ender and Era look like, or you're a D&D completionist, grab it. Just don't expect Eye at Beholder. Expect more like Eye at Be Bothered. Now on to Epic Games Store. This week they're giving away both Styx, Master of Shadows, and Styx, Shards of Darkness Deluxe Edition. Both games for free. Combined value of 40 quid. If you've never played these, the third-person stealth games from Cyanide Studio, where you play as a 200-year-old goblin assassin who's basically a fantasy world version of Splinter Cell Sam Fisher. Except he's 2 feet tall, green, and absolutely no filter on his mouth. First game, Master of Shadows, came out in 2014, and it's proper old-school stealth game. None of this, oh, I've been spotted, let me just murder everyone nonsense that modern games let you get away with. If you get caught, you're properly dead. You sneak, you climb, you use amber magic to create clones of yourself, and you stab people who deserve it. Very much in Thief and original Splinter Cell tradition. Shards of Darkness, sequel from 2017, polished everything up. Bigger levels, more verticality, co-op mode, zip lines, better traversal. PC Gamer gave it 79 out of 100 and called it a mean-spirited character lead in a big-hearted game, which is fair. Styx himself is an acquired taste. He makes fourth wall-breaking jokes about Assassin's Creed and Batman. Some people find him charming, others want to mute him entirely. But underneath attitude, a solid stealth experience. And here's why Epic's giving these away right now. Styx Blades of Greed, third game in series, launches February 19th. Just over a month away. They've even got a free demo on Steam right now that lets you play it first hour, and your saves carry over to full game. So Epic's doing what Epic does best, getting people hooked on series right before new installment drops. Smart marketing benefits us. Free games? No excuses. We'll claim them. Now, I need to say thank you to 2,002 subscribers on YouTube. Seriously, thank you for giving me your time and your attention. You lot have put my channel in top 10 to 15% on YouTube. That's not an easy barrier to crack. Think about that for a second. Top 10 to 15% at only 2,000 subscribers. Do you have any idea how many channels out there are fighting tooth and nail for that? Millions. Literally millions. And somehow you magnificent bastards decided this Yorkshire loudmouth ranting about gaming is worth your time. So yeah, I do appreciate you being here. Every single one of you. And to members, I mean, guys, that much deserves proper shout-out. We have James Lima, Firkinell, Silver Bullet 90, Asian Persuasion, Abapical, Scotty Seether, and Mayhem. 7 legends of gaming. You lot are keeping lights on, keeping content flowing, keeping me caffeinated enough to keep screaming into the void about industry. I appreciate it more than I can properly express without getting all soppy about it. And to everyone else, 74% anonymous listeners out there, even if you're not subscribed to the channel, you give me your time, your ear, you made it to the end of this video. That's half hour or more of your life you chose to spend with me instead of doing literally all else. That's very much appreciated. Like, subscribe and all that bollocks. Drop your comments and questions below. And remember, if industry won't hold itself accountable, we bloody well will. And I'll see you next time, you magnificent